Hello everybody, my name is Will Gamer, and today I'm going to be answering some questions for atheists. This is on carm.org, and so since I am an atheist, I figured I should answer these questions. So here we go. This is Questions for Atheists by Matt Slick. These questions are not meant to be showstoppers. They're only for research purposes so that I might better understand atheism and its adherents. Some questions are similar to others, while some questions are designed to elicit more thoughtful responses. I'll be adding to the list periodically. If you are an atheist and would like to respond, please copy them to an email and send them to carmstuff@yahoo.com, whichever one you want to respond to. Thank you. All right. Number 1. How would you define atheism? By the way, there's 31 questions, so this might take a while. Go ahead, grab some popcorn, I guess. How would you define atheism? It's pretty simple. All you have to do is answer the question, are you currently convinced that a God exists? If you say yes, then you're a theist. If you say no, then you're an atheist. There's no other criteria to that. Atheism is simply, I currently do not believe that a God exists. That's it. Number 2, do you act according to what you believe, that there is no God, or what you don't believe in? Okay. I do act in according to what I believe, and I act not according to what I don't believe. Whatever. If I believe something to be true, I'm going to act according to it. And if I don't believe something to be true, then I'm going to act in a way that will not contradict myself. You get what I mean? I think you do. Okay. Basically, I act on what I believe, and I don't act on what I don't. Simple as that. Number 3, do you think it is inconsistent for someone who lacks belief, in quotation marks, in God to work against God's existence by attempting to show that God doesn't exist? No, it is not inconsistent at all. The reason that people will try to attempt to show that God does not exist is because people that do believe that God exists are attempting to affect their lives either by trying to make some sort of law that will affect them or people around them, or they'll try to control people like ISIS does, people who use religion for malicious ways. You feel like it's a good idea to tell people that God does not exist, so they will stop using such terrible reasons to do what they do, or for people to stop listening to these terrible reasons, and to show that the emperor is not wearing any clothes. And hopefully it will turn the tides for people to use rational reasons for why they want certain reasons to be that way. If you want gay marriage to be illegal, you better find a rational, secular reason why you disagree with it. It can't be, well, it's because my old book says so. No, we do not take arguments from authority. It's about reasons and evidence as to why you want something to be the way you want it to be, not because some book told you to. Or it's not because that's how you feel. It's not about feelings, it's about facts. All right, so number 4, how sure are you that your atheism properly represents reality? I'm pretty confident that there is no rational argument that I've come across yet, or anyone that I know, that there is a God. So on a range from 1, I 100% believe that God exists. I know it for a fact. Number 4 would be I'm 50-50, and number 7 would be 100% do not believe that God exists. You cannot convince me otherwise. I would technically be a 6.9, because in order to be honest, you cannot prove a negative. You can't say for 100% certainty that something does not exist. It is the job of the believer to prove that something does. And it's technically impossible to prove something doesn't. If someone says, well, there's an invisible pink unicorn in my room, you just can't detect it because it's in another dimension, or it's outside space and time. How am I supposed to prove that doesn't exist? Am I going to have to go through every single inch of the universe or in every single dimension to prove that something does not exist? No, I just simply withhold my belief in it until the believer demonstrates that it exists. So, until it's demonstrated, I can be pretty confident that it does not exist. Number 5, how sure are you that your atheism is correct? For those same reasons that I just said, I'm pretty sure that it is correct. Number 6, how would you define what truth is? I would define truth being there's different levels of truth. There's things that are absolutely false, and then there's absolute truth and objective reality, and then there's, truths that are better than others. If the correct answer is there are, that it's 100, absolutely false would be negative infinity, whereas kind of right would be 50, and then 75, 80. It's basically what you can what truth is what you can determine by demonstrating. Like, God, I am terrible at this. I had an answer for this a minute ago. It's your ability to predict, to have a predictive model. If you can predict the future to a high level of certainty, then that is more true than something with a lower amount of predictability, or something that does not have predictive capabilities at all. That is the basis of science, is the ability to predict the future accurately. And the better you are predicting it, the more true it is. Okay, so number 7, why do you believe your atheism is a justifiable position to hold? For the same reasons that I displayed in 4 and 5. Number 8, are you a materialist or a physicalist, or what? I basically only believe in things that can be tested, that can be demonstrated to exist, and so I don't believe in anything in supernatural until it can be demonstrated that there is something supernatural. So yeah, I would be a naturalist, because the natural world is the only thing you technically can test. Number 9, do you affirm or deny that atheism is a worldview? Why not? I don't know. For the reason I explained in number 1, atheism is just simply, am I currently convinced that am I currently convinced that there is a God? And the answer is no. And so, I don't know what worldview, what they mean by that. I don't know. It doesn't have to go that far. You just simply say, no, I'm not convinced. Number 10, not all atheists are antagonistic to Christianity, but for those who are, why the antagonism? Because we're sick and tired of what Christians or other religions try to do to people that are not in their select group or in their tribe. We're just tired of the persecution or the discrimination to people that are not in their select group, and we're trying to antagonize them to show them that, hey, not cool, we're going to have to make you look silly in order to take you down. So we're going to have to antagonize you. Yeah, I hope that explains it well. Number 11, if you are at one time a believer in the Christian God, which I was, what caused you to deny his existence? So for those of you who don't know, I was a Bible-believing, Bible-thumping, fundamentalist, Baptist evangelist until I turned 21. And then I read a book about the God Delusion by Richard Dawkins, and then I actually got to see some arguments from the opposing side, and I realized that everything I believed was wrong, or every argument that I had for what I believed was insufficient. That the evidence that I thought I had was not really evidence at all. It was just anecdotal and hypothetical, and doesn't really have a basis in reality. It cannot be demonstrated. There's no evidence to back it up. There's like little or none at all. And it's just really all, arguments from authority, basically. Or arguments from ignorance. Where was I? Okay, number 12, do you believe the world would be better off without religion? Absolutely. A lot of wars would have never happened if there was no religion, because religion is one of the, if not the most, important reason for why a war started, is because people of different religions don't like people of other religions. It's very tribal. Yeah, it happens a lot. That's why we're getting into a war with ISIS right now, is because they're using their religion for the wrong reasons, and by attacking people, even other Muslims that don't believe the same way that they do. So if it wasn't for religion, they would have to find another reason to fight people, and it's kind of hard to do, because religion is so dogmatic. It's so it puts people together so easily that you can religion is good for making a lot of people do good. It's good for making a lot of people do bad. And right now, ISIS is using religion to convince a lot of people to do evil. It's easier to indoctrinate people when you tell them that you don't have to believe something based on facts or evidence. Just believe what I say, and you'll get rewarded in paradise when you explode in a suicide bomb. So without religion, probably wouldn't have to worry about that so much. Number 13, do you believe the world would be better off without Christianity? Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say an atheistic point of view is certainly more moral or more capable of being moral than a Christian point of view. Because you're not basing your beliefs based on what the Bible says, what God told you to believe. It's based on your moral conscience, what's your ability to empathize, other human beings, put yourself in other people's shoes, go, if I wouldn't want to be stabbed, they probably don't want to be stabbed either. So it's kind of obvious, and you can make other moral determinations that way as well. Number 14, do you believe that faith in a god or gods is a mental disorder? Technically, no. I don't believe it is. I believe it's just a lack of information. Like, you just haven't been told. You haven't heard the arguments from the other side, or you've been rejecting or not listening to the arguments from the other side. And so you just don't know. So it's not a mental disorder unless you're at the point to where even if someone is telling you those arguments, you're just like, blah, 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 blah. I can't hear you. It's just a solid mental block that is stopping you from listening to the other side. Even if you are 100% wrong, you will not change your mind. That could be a mental disorder, but I don't want to go too far to say it is. I'm just going to say you're just blocking yourself from information, and that's holding you back. Number 15, must God be known through the scientific method? Preferably. That would be best. But if he just randomly appeared in my room and said hi and showed me the seventh dimension, I'd be pretty convinced. The hard part would be convincing other people, because you have to demonstrate to them that it did indeed happen. So, you can be pretty simple to convince one person, but if you're going to convince other people, you're going to need the scientific method. Definitely. Number 16, if you are answered yes to the previous question, then how do you avoid a category mistake by requiring material evidence for an immaterial God? Well, why does it have to be an immaterial God? Back in the day, when religions first came out, it was just, our God is in that cave over there, but don't go there, it's forbidden. And then people went in the cave and found out that there is no God in there. And then when further religions came by, it's like, our gods are located on top of a mountain, like, say, the Greek gods. They was on Mount Olympus. I hope it's Greek. I hope it's not Roman. I could be wrong. But, the gods of Zeus and stuff. I'm pretty sure that's Greek. They said that their gods were located on Mount Olympus, and for the time, no one was able to climb Mount Olympus to prove them wrong. And then later on, when they did, they figured out those gods didn't exist, and so no one believes in them. And then some people said that their gods exist somewhere out in space, and then we invented telescopes to point towards space. We couldn't find the gods there, and so no one believes in those gods. And now we're on the final step where the Christians are saying, our God is somewhere in another dimension outside of the realm of space and time. Even though they somehow say that God is also in this room and everywhere at once, but somehow we can't test that because he's in another dimension. How convenient. Yeah, whatever. Number 17, do we have any purpose as human beings? Yeah, I'd say that human beings are intelligent enough to be able to create purpose for themselves and not have a purpose imposed on them. So yeah, you can have whatever purpose you want. Number 18, if we do have a purpose, can you as an atheist please explain how that purpose is determined? By your own rationality, by your own thoughts, just your ability to create a purpose for yourself. That's all it really has to come from. Number 19, where does morality come from? Morality comes, I think I explained this earlier, it's based on your ability to put yourself in other people's shoes, to find, treat others the way you would want to be treated kind of idea, although that could be flawed, but that's a pretty basic reason. I don't want to get too far into this right now. Are there moral absolutes? As far as do moral absolutes exist in the universe? No, there's not. They're just things that humans can obviously infer are morally wrong, because we're the ones that invented morality. So once you define morality, it's really easy to tell what goes against that definition of morality. If your definition of morality is, well, I just want to decrease unnecessary suffering, then obviously something that does increase suffering would obviously be absolutely immoral based on your human definition of morality. But are there moral absolutes? No. They're just things that obviously go against what we would believe morality to be. Just like murder or rape or theft. Obviously you wouldn't want those things done to you, and you would probably be able to realize that you shouldn't do that to other people. And number 21, if there are moral absolutes, could you list a few of them? Again, they're not moral absolutes, they're just things that are obviously go against what we would define morality to be. Number 22, do you believe there is such a thing as evil? If so, what is it? More evil as like its own entity? No. I believe people can have a evil mindset. They can be so encompassed in believing in themselves, or believing they want more things for themselves at the expense of others so much that they're willing to put on a suicide vest because that they're willing to kill other people because they believe that they're going to go to paradise when they die. I believe that's certainly a case of evil, or at least really, really bad stupidity from that was taught an evil way by an evil person. Number 23, if you believe that the God of the Old Testament is morally bad, by what standard do you judge that he is bad? Again, it's by our standard of morality. The God of the Old Testament is immoral because, well, he pretty much puts the death penalty for pretty much anything. If you looked at the laws in Leviticus, you can be put to death for working on a Saturday. You can be put to death for wearing clothing of 2 different linens. You can be put to death for eating shrimp, for eating bacon. You could be put to death for pretty much anything that any Christian today would be like, no, we don't need to live by that. That's just for way back then. Even though those were God's laws, that God said all those things were abominations, but they're cherry picking like, well, he also said homosexuality was an abomination, but we'll ignore those other things because we really hate homosexuals. I'm being malicious, but you get the idea. They're cherry picking, but it can definitely be shown that the God of the Old Testament is certainly immoral and was made up by men who were bigots, who were just didn't have any knowledge on the way the world works. And so, yeah, he's definitely a really bad character, definitely the most evil character of any work of fiction ever combined. Okay. Number 24, what would it take for you to believe in God? Just any shred of evidence, basically. Any sort of demonstration to show that the only answer is God. Not a argument from ignorance like, well, you don't have the answer for where all the material in the universe came from, therefore God must have put it there. No, you can't use the God of the gaps theory. You can't go, well, I don't know, therefore God. You can't just explain something you don't know by filling in whatever makes you feel good. You have to demonstrate that it is from God and nothing else. Basically. Where was I? Okay, number 25, what would constitute sufficient evidence for God's existence? I kind of just went over that. Number 26, must this evidence be rationally based, archaeological, testable in a lab, etc., or what? I'd say it has to be rationally based. I'm not going to believe something that's irrationally based. I think that's pretty clear. Testable in a lab, that would be nice if you could do that. I would like to see your peer-reviewed paper on the existence of God and your tests on how you did it. That would be great. Number 27, do you think that a society that is run by Christians or atheists would be safer? Why? I believe it has been demonstrated throughout the world that countries that are less religious have less crime than those that are more religious. In America, a vast majority of the population is religious. 40% of Americans believe in a literal 6,000-year-old Earth that was created in 6 days, and we have one of the highest, if not the highest, crime rates of anywhere in the world. Whereas if you compare it to, say, places like Britain, where the atheism is a much larger portion of the population, you'll see that crime is a lot lower there. And, you can look this up. You don't have to take my word for it. Let's see, where was I? Okay, number 27. No, I know, I just did that one. Number 28, do you believe in free will? Free will being the ability to make choices without coercion. Well, the difficulty in that is, how do you define free will? Because you can be like, well, I'm able to make decisions and stuff, but that could be applied to, say, a robot who is made of really complex circuitry. If we have free will and all our brains are just really complex neurons, then why can't a robot with really complex electronic circuits, not have free will? Maybe we can get a robot to have free will, but people will always argue that a robot can't have free will for some reason because he's programmed a certain way. Well, what if we're programmed to always give a certain response to certain things, no matter what? We don't have free will. We just have the illusion of free will. So the really difficult part is being able to define what free will is. So, I don't know. I'm going to say I would like to believe that we have free will, but for the most part, if you knew all the information of everything in someone's brain, I think you can have a really good model of being able to predict what that person is going to do in every single situation. And so it gives the possibility that you don't really have free will. You're just programmed in a way to do certain things at certain times. Yeah, so it's a tough question. Number 29, if you believe in free will, do you see any problem with defending the idea that the physical brain, which is limited and subject to the neurochemical laws of the brain, can still produce free will choices? I'm going to say that I don't believe in free will, that it's just a bunch of really complex neurochemical laws in the brain that just produce our choices that we think is actually free will when it's actually not. Number 30, if you affirm evolution and that the universe will continue to expand forever, then do you think it is probable that given enough time, brains would evolve to the point of exceeding mere physical limitations and become free of the physical and temporal, and thereby become deity and not be restricted by space and time? If not, why not? Well, I mean, if evolution points to in that direction, to where people that have, more intelligent brains than will survive and reproduce better than those that don't, then yeah, I mean, it certainly will increase. But to the level of deity, like say it has like telekinesis and being able to tell the future perfectly, I don't know. I don't know if living things could ever get that advanced. They can get pretty far, no doubt, but I don't think it would be to the level of deity, although they could certainly get so high that compared to us, we would think they'd be deities. But would they actually be? No, they wouldn't be. I don't know. I'm going to say it's rather unlikely, but not out of the realms of possibility. Number 31, if you answer the previous question in the affirmative, then aren't you saying that it is probable that some sort of God exists? Okay. What do you mean? You saying that someone evolved to the level of God and then created the universe? No, it still wouldn't be God anyway, because he had to, whatever deity mind that is, would have to come from an evolutionary perspective. It's not a God that just spontaneously came, out of nowhere and then created the universe. This sort of deity would have to have evolved that way from a beginning. It would have to have started, when the universe started, not when the universe started, but, it would have to evolve that way. It's not something that just spontaneously came out of nowhere and invented the universe. It was a product of the universe. It's much different. All right, well, that's the last question. I hope I gave my best answers the best I could. I don't know. I didn't want to take too long in explaining everything, but please let me know what you think. I'll leave a link to these questions in the description if you would like to answer them yourself. Please comment if you have any disagreements with me. I probably said some weird off-the-hook things that maybe I might think is weird, but whatever. I'm just giving my immediate answers off the top of my head right now. Obviously, I'm not very well thought out right now. I didn't write anything down. I'm just doing everything off the top of my head. So, Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed. Please don't forget to always stay classy, sexy, and overall awesome. This is Royal Gamer, signing out. Goodbye.